Hello, YouTube Pipers. Double O Pipe here, aka Rick. My Rossi Sarah. I'm sticking with this, and I'm positive that Paladin Piper sent this to me a while back, and I was going through my storage boxes back there and found it, and I don't know whether I ever tried it or not. This is Carter Hall made in the USA, which I suppose is different from Carter Hall of today. I don't know if there's a real difference here or if I'm just telling myself that there is. It's a good Codger blend. Cup of tea. I'm going to have to smoke some of my regular Carter Hall to see if and what the difference is. Excuse me. I think I have a permanent frog in my throat. Well, last time I got on here, I said I would have a painting of one of our YouTube Pipers, but I haven't gotten to it because I've been trying to keep up with this 100 head challenge. There's a challenge. Most people get their photos from Pinterest to copy to draw heads. I've gotten up to 24. Most of them are people I have known or people I have photos of in my own computer. The last few, I did go to that Pinterest site and copy some of their photos. I've posted them all on Instagram, and they seem to be coming up on Facebook too. Instagram and Threads and Facebook must all be connected so that if they put them on one format, they send them out to the other two formats. So anyway, all 24 of the ones that I've done have been posted. I was supposed to get back to it today, but I've been wrapping Christmas presents, trying to get that out of the way. Not that I have many to wrap, but I did have a few today. Most of mine I send through the mail from places that's like Amazon and different places to friends and relatives. so I don't have to wrap. I used to enjoy wrapping, so I used to wrap with Dad. He and I used to try and wrap them so that somebody could not guess what was in them. He was good at it. His capability of wrapping those, wrapping that paper so tight that there wasn't any kind of play in it. Me, I've got bulges here and bulges there, but it's not bad for a guy, I don't think. But anyway, I said last week, I don't think you could see it, but up here, I mean, it goes right into my frown line. I have a scar right there. That's been with me since I was about 8. And I got it. If I was 8, we used to go to my great-grandmother's farm every Christmas. From 1950 to 1959. Look forward to it every year. So anyway, if I was 8, must have been around 54 or 55. I'm not sure. I know that on the farm they still had hand-pumped water, outhouse in the back, and all that we ate was from the farm itself. No indoor plumbing. They had a potbelly stove and a fireplace in the front room. So it was before Dad and one of my uncles installed indoor plumbing. That was toward the end of the 9 years, from 50 to 59. But anyway, let's get back to it. This particular Christmas, we rode up there. I think it must have been early, because it just seems like we weren't rushed like we normally were. But anyway, we got there. And as always, as soon as Dad parked that car, that door was open and I was gone. Because Grandma and Granddad had 2 or 3 dogs, old hunting dogs. And every year they'd come barking, tails wagging. I'd get out there and all of them petting and just enjoying old friends. And they would run off, and there would be chickens out in the yard, and they'd run through. It was like a sea of chickens. And they would run through them, and those chickens would jump up into the air. Those dogs would bark. It was too funny. They never hurt the chickens. I mean, couldn't if you were a farm dog. You wouldn't last long if you killed chickens. But anyway, as I was running up to the house, Dad said, "Rick, won't you help me with these packages?" Which is, he had never asked me for help before, so I stopped, and it was kind of a shock. I turned around and said, "Yes, sir." So I ran back to the car. He started pulling packages out and putting them in my arms. And he pulled some out, and I think he got them all, because he wanted to get them all. And he slammed the door with his foot, and we walked up to the house. And I was thinking to myself, my dad asked me to help him. He couldn't do it without me. Boy, what kids think, huh? Excuse me. Anyway, we got into the house. I don't know how we opened the door because I know my arms were full. And we put the presents down in a chair and looked around. There was no Christmas tree. There was always a Christmas tree whenever we walked in that door. It was always there, and it was big and full and in front of the window with everything on it and a star on top. Well, I ran into the kitchen. My grandmama, of course, always in the kitchen cooking. She looked over and she said, "Child, come here." And I ran over to her and she hugged me real hard. And I said, "Grandma, where's the Christmas tree?" And she said, "Your granddaddy didn't have time to go out there recently because he's had so much to do. We figured we'd wait for your uncle to get here and he could go get it." About that time, my dad walked in and he said, "You got no Christmas tree up in the front." She said, "Yeah, I was just telling the child here that." And she related the story to him, and he said, "No need to wait for him to come. We can go get it." He said, "We," and I looked at him funny. He said, "Ricky, you want to go with me to look for a Christmas tree?" Wow. First time in my life, other than the packages, but that wasn't a big deal. First time in my life that he actually said, "Ricky, do you want to do something with me?" What could I say? I said, "Yes." Let's go. He said, "No, let's get something to eat first." I said, "Okay." Of course, I was disappointed we weren't walking out there to find that Christmas tree. Anyway, I light this pipe. Well, we sat down at the table, and like I told you before, that table was long table, wide, and every inch of it had something to eat. Ham, chicken, pork, flapjacks, eggs. I mean, you name it, for breakfast, sausage. It was there. Well, I said, "I'd like some pancakes," because we were having breakfast. And my mother came over with a plate full of them. Put a stack of them on my plate. And she said, "You want butter on that?" And I said, "Yes." And she pushed the bowl of butter, because my grandmother always churned her own butter and always put it in this bowl. So I got a knife and I got a big slab and put it on the first pancake, second pancake, third pancake, fourth pancake, fifth pancake. I had a stack of them like that. And then she said, "How about some cane syrup?" And I said, "Of course." And I tried to, it was a big bowl. It had a handle, I know, but I couldn't even lift it. So I had to stand up, grab the handle, hold the bottom, and pour the syrup over my pancakes. And I put it back, pushed it over to the side. And I got my fork and I dug into those things. My grandmama could cook. Lord, she could cook. Even pancakes tasted better than anywhere else. She was such a good cook. Well, while I was tearing into those pancakes, my dad was watching me just drinking a cup of coffee. He didn't really want anything to eat. He never ate in the morning. Finally got through, pushed the plate aside, and I said, "You ready to go, Daddy?" He said, "Yeah, I guess we can go now." He smiled, put his cup down, said, "Let's go find an axe." Well, I knew where it was, and I ran out the back door and went to the shed and grabbed an axe, long-handled axe, and I was out the door by the time he got up to it. I said, here's the axe. And he said, that looks like a good one. And we started walking. He said, which way do we go? I said, probably out there where all the trees are. Because my dad had first asked, where do you want me to go to buy one? And my grandmama just laughed at him and said, why you want to buy one whenever we got acres of them out here? Just go out there and cut one down. Dad looked surprised when he told her that. Because we always went to a tree lot and bought a tree. Well, anyway, we got on the path to go out to the forest there. Pine trees, all sizes growing up out there. We had to walk past the outhouse, which had a lingering odor to it. and I saw the chickens, and I got on the other side of Dad because those chickens always scared me next to the outhouse. And we started walking toward the forest, and we got into it. And everyone I saw said, how about this one? How about this one? How about this one? And each time Dad would say, well, let's look a little bit more. And I said, okay. And each time I would point to one, because any of them looked good to me, but he had his eye out for something that he felt was perfect. Dad always had an eye for such things. Well, finally, we got out into the midst of them. I mean, like I said, they were all sizes, young, old. And he saw one that was perfectly conical. Beautiful tree. Lower limbs so you could hang bulbs on it. Excuse me. And the perfect top that could take the angel. I mean, it just came to a point, and that one limb went straight up, and it was perfect for that angel. And he said, I think we'll do this one. I said, that's a beauty. And he said, yeah, I think so too. So I said, what can I do? He said, well, hold off. I said, can I cut? Can I cut? He said, well, maybe, which always meant no. But anyway, he said, stand back now. And I stood back, and he hit that axe into that trunk. One good whack. A second, right in the same place, so that it cut pretty good, and the tree was beginning to lean. And this is the part that I don't quite remember. It's a little foggy. But he said, Ricky, come here and hold this. And I'm not sure what it was he wanted me to hold now, because as I went to hold whatever it was, the tree snapped off and the trunk snapped back and hit me whack right in the forehead. Everything went black. And after a bit, I began to look around, and I saw little birds flying around in a circle going tweet, 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 tweet. Little bluebirds. They were just as pretty. And my dad's face and mine going, Ricky, are you okay? He was real fuzzy. The birds were pretty clear going through his face in a circle. And I kind of looked at him, and he came in a little clearer, and I said, what happened? And he said, the tree hit you, knocked you out. I said, huh? He said, are you okay? I said, I don't know. He said, well, let's see if you can stand up. So he took my hand and tried to help me up, and my legs went out from under me, and I fell down again. He said, that doesn't look too good, son. Come here. And he kind of took me in both hands and picked me up and put his arm under mine and held on to me. He said, how do you feel? And I said, dizzy. He said, well, let's walk it off a little bit. And he walked me around. He said, how you feeling now? I said, I feel better. He said, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Can you make it to the house?" I said, "Sure, I can make it to the house." So he said, "If you're sure, because I'm going to let you go." I said, "That's okay." And he let me go. My knees buckled a little, but I stood back up. And he said, "I'm going to get the tree now. You're all right." I said, "Yeah." He said, You carry the axe? Okay. I took the axe. I said, "Yeah, let's take the tree to the house." And he picked it up, and we started walking back to the house. As he was pulling the tree through the door, I was walking up the steps, those old 2x4s on 3 or 4 of them up to the house level. And I got to the top step, and my mother was looking at Dad carrying the tree, and then she looked at me and she screamed. She said, "What happened to you?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Give me a towel, somebody." And she got a towel and she started mopping my forehead. I said, "What do you mean? What's wrong?" I couldn't understand what she was screaming about. And then she took the towel away and it was drenched with blood. I hadn't noticed anything like that. My forehead had been bleeding just profusely. I think it's because, like they say, scalps seem to bleed a lot when you cut them. And Dad had dropped the tree in the front room and come back in and said, what's the screaming about?" She said, "Ricky, he's got a bashed head here and it's bleeding like crazy." And Dad said, "He's fine. Don't worry about it. Just clean it up." She said, "What do you mean it's fine? He's bleeding like a stuck pig." He said, "He's been walking fine. He's not been complaining. We just came back in." Dad was always calm, cool, and collected. He brought about calmness and coolness to the entire area, to whoever was there. And my mother calmed down a little bit, and she cleaned up my forehead and put a Band-Aid over it. Must have been pretty wide, because that towel was soaking. And like I say, I didn't even notice it. It wasn't getting in my eyes or anything. Dad was just as calm and cool as he could be. I could tell he was worried out there in the field, though, because he kept leaning over me and saying, "Are you okay, son? Ricky, are you okay?" And he said I was unconscious for about 5 minutes. So he was a little concerned at that time. But once I got up and I was walking, he was okay. And that's what he told my mother. He said, "He's fine. He's walked it off. He might have a little scar." And I'll tell you what, every time I look in the mirror and I see that scar, that reminds me of the first time my dad and I ever did anything together. And it's my present from that day, way back when, from Georgia, when we went looking for a Christmas tree. Anyway, it was a great Christmas. It really was. Whole new adventure for me. And I've always remembered that one. Of all the Christmases at the farm in Georgia, that is the one that sticks with me the most. I guess because, like I said, it's the first time my dad ever asked me to do anything with him. And that meant something. And to have the physical memory of it on my face to always remember. Well, so much for my Christmas back then. I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in case I don't get back on here. Like I said, I did not paint anybody this week to put on the end of this, so you don't have to worry about that. I'll try and do it next time. Excuse me, but I need to finish up this 100 head challenge to see if I can get better, because I'm not liking most of them. But they say as you continue, you get better. So, God bless you all. Until the next time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.